Pulisic dentro, Rafa. Gol! Ebram! Gol! È l'azione più bella del mondo! È l'azione più bella!
Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of the SempreMilan podcast. I'm your host Ollie Fisher, joined once again by Anthony Torgrud on the wrong side of the screen.
Ooh, the wrong side of this screen, but not the street. I drive on the correct side. Ollie doesn't drive at all. Also, I think they might have heard your sneeze or sniffle right before the recording started, but yeah. So there's that. Madison was supposed to be with us. We changed our schedule for him. If you guys have noticed, we're recording about 3 hours later than normal. Reason being, Madison was offended that we kept going at a time that he was unavailable, but it was the time that worked best for my schedule and Ollie's schedule. So we decided we would change it up for him this week. And lo and behold, he canceled about 4 minutes before recording started. So that's where we're at now.
Yeah.
His kid has to get picked up. He got sick at school. So understandable. Just kind of funny that it happened this way, but yeah. Here we are.
Yeah, little peek behind the curtain there. It's how we do things. Everything works seamlessly all the time here with the SempreMilan machine. Yeah,
I think we'd have a spreadsheet with like a schedule and a calendar, and we marked availability. But no, it's a text at 11 p.m. the night before from me that says we go in tomorrow, and usually someone says, "How about the next day?"
Quite literally, yeah, spot on. We've got like a writer's rota, which is mapped out to military precision. The podcast isn't quite that. It's just, can we find an hour at some point in the next?
Yeah,
and that's remarkable because we tend to record and upload around about the same time every week. So people will think that we move heaven and earth to make this happen every week. It's not quite that, but yeah, it's is what it is. Summer, more relaxed vibes, etc. Speaking of which, the boys are back in town. Preseason officially began yesterday. We're recording this on Tuesday. It's what they call the raduno, which is basically, the first day of preseason. So that's always fun. We're going to talk a bit about that. And it was also the day of Max Allegri's first press conference, his unveiling, if you like, but it's not technically his unveiling because he had that 15 years ago when he came for the first time. But yeah, it's like his second day one as a Milan coach. So yeah, we'll talk through some of the things that he said. But before we dive into the episode, thank you, as always, to our Substack founding members, Des Winter McGlynn, Tito Mac, Maurice Pullman, Joey Gawler, Kemin, MJ, Mats, Luke Villano, Raul Escobar, Jack Carlo Fassi, Nasser, Merlin, Finker, Derek Favretto, Hevanly 13, Mike Schulz, JT Physio, Tourette, Marco Villela, Roberto Racinos, Ken, Medicare, and Gianluca. Appreciate all of your support. Can try a week for free on the Substack. In the past week, you would have got content such as Lorenzo and Stefano's most recent pub chat, where they did a tier list of the strikers that Milan have been linked with, and they also brought a wild card to the table. So definitely go check that out. The most recent bonus podcast myself and yourself did was on the 4th of July. Very fitting. Fireworks indeed. Samuel A. Ritchie player profile. What a way to celebrate independence. Our independence from Tijani Reinders.
Our independence from each other, actually.
Yeah.
We could have been compatriots, but
True.
didn't work out that way. Yeah.
You're on the Yunus Musa side of things.
You're on the Yunus Musa. You sound like the Yunus Musa side of things.
Well, yeah, okay. What do we have? Oh, yeah, the newsletter, of course, last week. And I would also plug again Isaac's bonus article, which explains the Francesco Camada loan move, the formula, the figures, and that kind of thing. I'll plug that again because it was made official yesterday. He's gone there on loan with option to buy and buy back. Let's go. Always good to see the lads back at Milanello. Now, this wasn't like everyone arrived on Monday morning thing. It's always a bit strange because players arrive in batches at different times. The first group rocked up on Friday, and then they were sort of coming in over the weekend. And the idea was that everybody was back and ready to train by Sunday night, stayed there, and then, into Monday morning for the first official day of pre-season, which was a behind closed doors training session in the morning, and then Allegri's presser at 1 p.m., Central European time, and then there was an open training session in the evening where fans were able to sort of gather around the fences outside and watch on. So yeah, they're all back, barring Luka Modric, who of course is at the Club World Cup with Real Madrid. Well, will have an extended vacation and is joining up at the start of August. It was confirmed by Allegri, and Santi Jimenez, who is a champion of the North Americas, as we're now calling it, because it's owned by Mexico, unfortunately.
Yeah. I mean, he barely played. Broke his finger in the 3 minutes he was on the field. So
have you seen the picture?
Yeah, I watched it live. They showed it, and it was so funny because everyone's like jeering him because they're like, okay, this guy's fucking time wasting flopping. He's been on 1 minute. And then he puts his finger to the camera and it's just completely crooked. And you go, oh.
Yeah, his finger was flopping.
Yeah.
Certainly. Not nice. Not nice. That's my thing, like like if you see an injury that just gets you a bit more than other ones do.
Mm-hmm.
When I was a kid, I played cricket quite a lot. And for those who aren't familiar, it's a hard ball. It's sort of like baseball, but there's actually less give to it. And I was fielding a ball and it was thrown in very hard. And I guess I didn't quite get to it. And it pinged my finger all the way back and dislocated it. And it also broke it across there and across there. It was a real mess, to be honest. I was asked to bat after that, and I couldn't get my finger in my glove because it had swollen up that much. Yeah, went off to hospital, and it was the day before we were due to go on holiday, and they were like, "You need surgery to correct that." And my mum was like, "Nah, we've paid for this holiday." So they give it like a full arm cast thing to make sure that it just would not move, and then I had that for 6 weeks, and so whenever I see finger injuries like that, just a bit of PTSD. Get well soon, Santi Jimenez.
Oh, that's funny. Yeah. Well.
Yeah, it wasn't very. Do you know what though? I will say one thing. It wasn't that painful. I don't know if adrenaline kicked in or what.
Probably.
But, it was just like, there was a doctor, thankfully, on the boundaries edge, and he said just put it in ice water for now, and then probably have to go to Otley A&E, which is what happened. Anyway, pre-season. So Santi wins the Gold Cup 1-2-1. I don't really know too much more about the game apart from that USA were playing without their stars. But anyway, he's going to be laid back. And then we've got Maignan and Emerson Royale still training on their own for the time being.
Why?
Not 100%, I guess, which is kind of worrying off the bat.
But they're at Milanello?
They're there. Yeah,
okay.
They're there.
Strange.
And then you've got, who else you got? Obviously, Teo, who's on the way out. Benacer told he can have extended vacation, also not part of the plans. And Yassine Adli told to train with Milan Futuro. So he will report on the 14th if he hasn't been sold by then. So, there's that. You can argue.
And Davis Vasquez.
That treatment.
He's also with the Futuro.
Yeah. Good shout. But they're all there. Apart from that, good to see the lads walking out on a Monday. Pulisic giving her way back, and it's like, here we go. Only 6 weeks until we play again. I like the vibes.
I do too. Like, I know everyone's got their thing on Allegri, but I don't know, man. Just something about seeing him there, the Raduno, the people outside Milanello, like the boys getting back. Maybe not all the boys, but most of the boys, and you get that feeling of like it's the good old days again. Like it's 2011 all over again. But it's not. It's 2025, and everyone's a little old and tired.
Yeah.
So
Martin's still there.
He is still there. He did cut his hair. Did you see that?
Yeah, it looks better.
It does.
I think it
looks like an actual adult finally. So hope he starts acting like one.
He's just like on the edge of sort of emo rock, though. It's that sort of length where it's like, oh, he's going a bit Blink 182 here. Whereas the full thing goes a bit metal. It looks better than it did anyway. And he was on the sidelines. The whole management were mixed reaction, it should be said. Scaroni and Ferlani were, I guess, rather predictably booed by some of the fans. And the Curva were not present for the second year in a row. They didn't go last season because I don't think they ever really agreed with the appointment of Fonseca. They said at the time, we will support them when it comes to it, but this is like an anti-management thing. And then they said basically the same this time. Well, in fact, they didn't. They just said that they wouldn't be present. So, it's one of those. I think basically at the point with them, as with normal supporters, but you're going to get those fans who go because they want autographs and they want photos, and that's the best chance that they have to do it. So fair enough. I don't begrudge anyone going with young kids and all that kind of thing. But for the curver, I think it's a bit more of a statement of like, no, after all of the mistakes made, you need to prove that you've earned our support back, whether you think that's right or wrong. They weren't there. And if they were only going to be there to boo everyone, then
who does it help?
I'm happy the vibes were more positive. I want to talk about the Allegri press conference. Now, we did like a deep dive on the Iglitare one, and I don't want to do the same kind of breaking it down line by line thing, just because we've got quite a lot of good questions this week. But I do want to mention some of the key things that he touched upon, because in the end, with all the translations and of the questions and answers and whatnot, came in around about 3,000 words for the site, which is, I think, near enough a record for an interview / press conference piece. So it would be a bit long to go through it bit by bit. But one of the key things that he said through various lines was stressing the importance of unity. He said, to get results, you have to be a single unit with a single direction to go towards, with responsibilities that we must have towards a big club like Milan. The block that must exist from the owners to the warehouse workers must be a single block to put the players in the best conditions to do what they have to do, and that is to win matches. I thought that would, look, he ain't going to come out and say, let's be at each other's throats, is it? It's kind of what you'd expect a new head coach to preach. But we keep coming back to this notion that Allegri watched us from afar, or the periphery at least, last season, and was able to identify a lot of the problems that were going on. And he probably saw cooling break at Lazio, the penalty debacle in the Fiorentina game, Calabria having a spat with Conceição after we scored twice in the last minute to win. Red cards aplenty. He probably saw an incredibly fragmented dressing room and confusion in the management just above them that wasn't able to then rectify the situation, because we all saw the reports of Fellaini and Ibra not getting along and things like that. And I always think that there's fire near the smoke with that kind of thing, otherwise a denial gets published. I think he was almost directly addressing that and saying, for us to succeed this season, those same conditions need to go out the window. And we've heard about some of his initiatives. Apparently he's encouraging the players for the first bit of preseason to stay at Milanello. There's a mandatory lunch and dinner that takes place each day. The double sessions as well to get the work in. We've already seen videos of him in the training session itself, pulling certain players aside for a chat. Leao in particular, Jimenez, Alex Jimenez, Pavlovic. I think he's just like, this is where I'm like, this is perfect, because he knows what works. He has won multiple things, and he knows what a winning environment is like. And for him to be preaching this on day one, I think is important.
And his personality is a complete 180 from Conceição and, by extension, Fonseca, where they were, tough love, kind of yell at your players sort of managers. We saw that didn't work. And we could argue all day about what's the right approach, what's the wrong approach. But what matters is the approach is working. And I think we're seeing the exact opposite of what didn't work, which means, logic says that this will work. Now, obviously, yet to be seen, but seeing a friendlier guy, someone who puts his arm around you, who's going to have jokes with you, but he's going to want the best for you, he's going to coach you and tell you how to do it, is a lot more similar to what Pioli did. Maybe a bit more tactical, because I think it's fair to say Allegri is just a higher caliber of coach compared to Pioli. That's no disrespect to him. It's just, variance of who's won what. But I think it's the right appointment at the right time to get this group back to where it needs to be. That's not to say we're going to come out and win a Scudetto immediately, of course, but I do think we're going to see a united team, and we might even see some unity at the management level because of it. Obviously that's going to take a lot more work, but I do think we're headed in the right direction with the Max appointment, with the Tare appointment, and even with some of the signings, even though we've only seen one of them so far, but even with the departures, because one thing that we saw consistently as far back as Pioli season is when things aren't 100% Teo's way, he does reflect how that makes him feel on the pitch. And you mentioned a lot of the things. the water break, all those things. And what happens a lot of the time is Leao gets sucked into that because they're boys, they're best friends. Leao posted a tribute to him on Instagram. I think we're going to see a better Leao because he's gone. And it's not that Teo is a bad guy or anything like that or a bad personality, but when it's like when you and I are together, we're going to act a bit different. We're going to build on each other and it's going to rise, that's how it is with your friends. So when you have one guy who's your best friend on the team and he's going to make a little statement, you're either going to back your boy, you're going to one up him, or you're going to step back. And Leao showed that he's the type of guy who's going to back him or one up him. And then Teo's going to do the same. And then it keeps building and building. And so it puts Leao in this category as well that I think he's not actually in. And I think we're going to see a better Leao from it as well. Obviously, anyone's personality can change, and this is all just speculation, and I could be totally wrong, but I think everyone's going to be better for it because of the type of guy that Allegri is and how he handles his players.
Yeah, definitely. Obviously, he was his coach for the vast majority of his time in the club, but we definitely saw the best from Leao under Pioli, and it comes back to the conditions created by the coach, I think, a little bit. And Pioli was big on the togetherness thing as well. We saw what happened during lockdown and how we came out of the other side of that and went on that remarkable run. And it was clear that as a team, they were performing above the sum of their parts because they were willing to run through walls for each other. They built like a real cohesiveness and a proper unit, which, I think is kind of what Allegri is hinting at sort of needing to get back to. Obviously, things towards the end, like that wasn't enough anymore. I think the players, having had two quite abrasive coaches, I guess, I don't know, like last season, we didn't necessarily get exactly what we thought from either of the coaches, I don't think. I think from Fonseca, we kind of expected the assured technician, and what we actually got was the bad man manager who the tactics never really evolved. And then with Conceição, we sort of expected a bit of a shouty man, and we certainly got that at times. But the kind of defensive resilience and playing on the mentality side of things. But we looked again very weak mentally during that period. So now you contrast that with somebody like Allegri, and I'll mention at this point as well. I just got a certain feeling when watching the press conference live. It was made available to watch on YouTube, and I'd urge everybody to go back, or it's on our TikTok and stuff like that. The moment when he walks into that room for the press conference with a smile on his face, and you sort of see some of the journalists doing the same, you realise, first of all, it's a bit of a boys' club, like Max is back.
Yeah.
But secondly, and I put out a tweet about this, but I do think aura gets overused in football. People are using it almost ironically now, but that is what it felt like to me. It felt like watching somebody step into a room, and the moment that he sat down to answer questions, he controlled that room. He's got a charisma that has been sorely lacking at times from our coaches. Now, will that necessarily translate into us winning 30 out of 38 league games on the pitch this season? Do you know what? Probably not. But I think that the players will be more at ease having somebody like him in charge, not just because of his style of management, but also he's like the positives of the Pioli style of management plus the winning CV, so they can fully believe in his methods rather than being like, is he just kind of making this up as he goes along? There is that element of faith. But yeah, it was kind of like the return of an old favourite. And just for that brief second, you forget how it ended the last time. Ultimately he was sacked kind of unceremoniously, and there is a bit of a feeling of like back for revenge, but also back somewhere, as he said in his own words, somewhere that he's very fond of. And there's a familiarity to it all, because no doubt a lot of those journalists that he was answering questions from yesterday were still there from the last time. Have been covering the club for such a long time that and it's impossible not to kind of rekindle that enthusiasm. So yeah, it's almost like a continuation. But I just thought it was interesting. I definitely felt something seeing him step into that room and everybody be like, right, here we go. Because there's the humour as well. He had a bit of a joke.
Jokes.
And,
Yeah. Said
Yeah.
last time I was here, I had hair. Me too. Last time he was there, so I get it. I'm right there with
Yeah.
solidarity.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, I saw the side by side of like his first training session with Milan and then his first one this stint, and like you can see that 15 years have passed, right? Like he's obviously gotten older, but it's cool because I don't know. It's just like the return of an old friend, Even though there was a point where I think every fan was unanimously in favor of like, guys got to go. I think 90% of fans were in favor of him coming back this time as well, just based on how everything went down. But you see the picture of him there training Zlatan, and then now you see the picture of him there with Zlatan monitoring. And like, while everyone has probably more negative idea of Zlatan now than they did in the first photo, it's still just kind of cool to see it. It's just like you said, the boys are back in town. It's neat.
And when you see Allegri sort of rock up with this aura and be the magnet for all of the attention, and everything's about him and everything's about the project that he's going to build and carry out with Iglitare, I just wondered if all of a sudden the other members of the management, Ibra, Moncada, Ferlani, are just like, we're not immediately in the crosshairs at the moment. They're focused on this and how they do things. And, I just think I said it so many times, the thing about the Venn diagrams and how they were all trying to do the thing that none of them could do, and it ended up being a shit show. Feels like they've put in two perfect things there that just push everything out and make it just feels a lot better. Again, will it translate to us winning the title this season? I'd say more unlikely than likely at the moment, but it's certainly a good starting point, right? Like, I feel much less doubt going into this preseason, and obviously it's very early days, than I did the last preseason because we acknowledged what a gamble Fonseca was and things like that.
I think it also allows, and let me start by saying I'm not letting any of them off the hook. We're all still have our feelings about them, but I think it allows Moncada and Fulani and Zlatan more room to do what they're actually supposed to do. Now you could say, well, what is that? Nobody knows in Zlatan's case, but with Fulani, it's more business stuff. Moncada, it's more scouting oriented, things like that. Because Tare's there, none of those three have to pretend that they're a sporting director, and none of those three have to pretend that they're a technical director or a head manager either. Now that they have Allegri and Tare who are filling those roles, they're allowed to go into the back office, do their back office stuff, put that Harvard Business School degree to use, and do actual business things. And you could argue his merit there as well. That's fine. But when you take the difficult task that he's not qualified for off his plate, it's going to make the qualified task much easier. So, yet to be seen, but I think we might even see an improvement in him. And if everything goes smoothly this year with every part, we may enter May 2026. Thank you, Fulani did a good job this year. We might not, probably won't, but
I like that. That was sort of my lukewarm take at the time when everybody was saying that somebody's head has to roll after this. Like Ibra's got to go, Ferlani's got to go, Moncada's got to go. I still think Scaroni should probably go, but that's by the by. I was like, no, like it's so clear the figure that we're missing that makes everything align, which is a sporting director. And then with the right sporting director, they pick the right head coach. Like that's how these things work. And then from that, a chain of command becomes more obvious. Ibra, look, there's still a lack of clarity about his role exactly. I think they are kind of just making it up as they go, but I wouldn't have booted him out. I think he can be a big asset, as a mentor to being a public figure to being a brand type thing. Ferlani is like factually a good CEO. Like, look at the accounts, that when you're asking him to control the transfer market, things are a little bit different, but he's never done it before. So what has he done? He's worked in a hedge fund. He's been cleaning various parts of the accounts for some time. I think he can go back to doing that, and we see how it works from here. Moncada is a scout. That's what he's done, for his entire career. I don't think he ever wanted to become the technical director, even by name. I think, I think the less in the public eye he is, the happier he is, and he can get on with doing his work behind the scenes. So, the structure feels a lot better to me. And speaking of structure, one of the things that Allegri said, he kind of reiterated that the priority is to fix the defensive department. He said in the last 20 years, there has only been one season where the best defense didn't win the league, and that was Sarri's year at Juve when they conceded 43 goals. A great team scores 60 to 80 goals. If you concede 40, you can't even get into the top 4. So yeah, I debated this at length with various people, but it is a fact that the best defense in Serie A usually wins the league.
Yeah,
the stat proves it. And you look back to 2021-22 season, we win the league with 31 goals conceded. That's less than a goal per game. And then it's just gradually getting worse from there. And then we come to an 8th place league finish. It's almost as if it kind of runs congruent, with the outlier being 23-24, where we scored a shit ton of goals.
right.
And
I think when you look at that, if you go back the last 10 or 15 years, and we've done this before on the podcast, so maybe I misquote the stat here, but based off memory, it's roughly, the best defense has won the league all but one time in that last 10, 15 year stretch. And the best offense has won it all but 3 times. So obviously that shows you the defense is more important. You could say that, or you could say that really the best team is the best team that wins it every time, right? Like if you're the best offense and the best defense at the same year and you win it, go figure. But it does go to show that the defense is more important because the best offense hasn't won it every single year or as many years as the best defense has. But it's interesting when that is the Max philosophy, and we've seen how he plays right at Juventus and at Milan. But we haven't made any defensive changes. We kept Mike, but we got rid of both fullbacks. I guess we brought in Salamakers, but yet to be seen if he's going to be a fullback or if he's going to be a right wing. We don't know. Same with Jimenez. Is he going to be the starting guy? I find that hard to believe. Bartazaghi, is he going to be the starting guy? Is Emerson Royale going to have a total transformation under Allegri? Who knows? We have no idea.
Mystery
but
box.
The interesting thing is we haven't been linked to that many fullbacks, and to me, that's the position we need to replace ASAP. If we're losing Taylor Hernandez, which I think we all agreed was the right thing to do, and we still haven't replaced Calabria, who we wanted to replace for the last 6 years. Who do we bring in? We got rid of.
Back.
He is a free agent.
Yeah, he's going to Palace apparently,
option.
which is wild. That is interesting because it's an absolute requirement that we sign 2 new starting fullbacks, and I think it's looking more likely than unlikely that we sell and sign a centre back. If it's probably going to be Chow, but if not, then there's still links there for Tomori. So that's movement, and the sooner that gets done, the better in terms of trying to, because he's going to build from the back, and by that I mean kind of fortify from the back. That's the first thing that will be worked on, and then you move on to the transitions and attacking play patterns and that kind of thing. So yeah, that is interesting. It's going to be a new look defense, and I just wonder if that's why, like with the fullback pursuit, I'd say it's been pretty mysterious so far in the sense that we keep getting names flung at us without anything really moving forward too much. It's all just names. It was Zinchenko and who like Gueladue, and then it was Dodo, and just names, all white noise. And I wonder if it's because that's what Allegri wants to spend the most time on, like picking the right profiles and making sure that back 4 is watertight. And then we know the priorities being the midfield more so by like numerical urgency than anything, and the need to replace Reinders. So those are the 2 departments. And then you got like Moretto saying the striker could be a late July, early August thing for us. So that kind of gives you a month to get to that point. So I think the priority is to kind of fix the back 2/3 and then move to the attack. But yeah, I think for those who criticise the appointment because of Allegri's style, his words perhaps do not necessarily dispel, the I don't know, it's not an agenda, is it? But I guess the notion that he's a defense first coach. But I'm so in favour of it. Like it's been painful watching us since the Champions League semi-final season,
Mm-hmm.
and even that was while we were sort of struggling in the league a little bit, but in the Champions League we found a way to keep Spurs at bay, to keep Napoli at bay, summon something from somewhere, switch to a back three in that circumstance. But it has been so painful to watch a disjointed team every week that has no idea how to organise itself out of possession, is so vulnerable on the counter, things like that. If you want someone to come in and fix that and fix it quickly, this is the guy. And that's what we need to do. Unfortunately, we clearly need to get back to basics after an 8th place finish.
Mm-hmm.
You can't go in and bring in somebody who's like De Zerbi. I think that would have been far more of a risk because he would have opened us up. And it's like that kind of caused us a lot of problems. So I think it is right to go for that, to go for the... I don't think it's quite Catenaccio anymore. And also some people forget that some of his Juventus teams, particularly in his first, in fact, pretty much exclusively in his first spell, were really good teams. Like, yes, they were the best team in the league on paper as well, but regularly scored 90 plus goals or 80 plus goals, and racked up 90. I think in the was it 5 seasons that he won the Scudetto? I think it was 5 seasons he won the Scudetto with them, and they racked up 90 points or above in 4 of them. Like, you can't do that by being a shit, boring team. You still have to go out and beat teams, which they did almost every week, and they got to 2 Champions League finals. You don't do that if you can't score goals. So I'm not too worried on that front. I think as long as most weeks the other team has a 0 against their name, we're going to win a lot more than we lose. Well,
I agree.
Lose.
It
we're
may
going to
not
lose,
be...
are we? If we keep a clean sheet, we can't lose. So
They may not be the most fun, enjoyable games to watch, and I think that's where everyone's groans come from because of how difficult it was to watch last season. But I promise you, a boring, hard-fought 1-0 victory is going to be a lot more enjoyable than a 3-1 loss or a 3-2 loss. Last season, it did not matter how many goals we scored. I never felt like we had the game in our hands. You can maybe say the 3-0 against Inter, but even then, the first 60 minutes of that game, we should have been down by 5. We never were comfortable. Even when we had leads, it was always like, okay, how long until we concede? How many times did we score a goal, keep it 0-0, first half, first 30 minutes? We finally get that breakthrough in the 40th, and then the 42nd minute, 1-1. It's like, okay, here we go.
We were very, very vulnerable.
So I will happily take 1-0 victories all season, even 0-0s. Just stop letting them in.
Yeah, and obviously the prerequisite is winning, but people don't give a shit when it comes to it. When we were in the Scudetto run-in, we kept 9 clean sheets out of 11, conceded 2 goals in the final 11 games. We drew a couple of them 0-0, didn't we? I think, and then lost. We won a lot of them by a goal. Who fucking cared at that point? It was like it was circumstantial. We kept the ball rolling. We did what we had to do. I think Milan's best teams in history have always been built on a strong defense. Now, is this an absolute guarantee that that's what's going to happen? No, I think there is still quite a bit of work to do. And as you say, there's going to be big movement in the defensive department with 2 new starting fullbacks and everything. It'll be interesting to see what he can do on the centre-backs as well in terms of the power of coaching. Can he inspire confidence in them? Can he pick a pairing and stick with them for weeks and weeks and weeks? That all remains to be seen. But I think if we work under the presumption that we're going to be better defensively under Allegri, then it's a better baseline to start from. And I think he's going to raise the floor of this team. That's right, isn't it? Raise the floor. Yeah, I don't think we're going to have as many disasters. Let's put it that way. Moving on, you got asked about aiming for the Scudetto. Now, I wanted to do a little throwback to when Paulo Fonseca got asked around a year.
Oh, he got asked or we got asked? Sorry, did I change it too soon?
Yes. We're still on Allegri. So yeah, Fonseca got asked just under a year ago what's the aim for this season? And he said to win the Scudetto. And of course, Allegri got asked about, whether the title has to be to go. Sorry, whether the aim has to be to go for the title without any European distractions. He said, aiming for the Scudetto is a proclamation that is more useful for you to write about. Being in a big club like Milan, everyone must have the ambition to achieve the maximum. Then the players will do the talking. The league doesn't lie. Skip that. We can only talk about this in March. Until March, we have to build for the final months. It was a bit like what Conte said, if I remember correctly. Again, around a year ago when the same thing as Napoli coach. And I think there's no coincidence that these two are the active coaches with the most Scudetti to their names combined. I think 6 and 5.
Yeah.
In the sense that he didn't say, yes, we're going to go for it. He just said, we've got an obligation to be ambitious anyway by being at this club. And what we want to do is approach the home stretch and be in the mix. And then we'll go from there.
And that's the realistic thing to do, right? You're not giving anyone false hope. You're not trying to build yourself up for anything like Fonseca was when he said it. It was more of a statement of, I've been here before. I know how to win it. And I'll let you know if we're capable of it when it's a possibility. But for now, 38 finals, treat every game like it's your last, and let's get some points on the board. Come March, come April, if shit's looking good, then yeah, we could say that that's our target. We're going to push for it. I remember I want to say it was the last week of April, might have been the first week of May. It was towards the end of the final season last year. Yeah, towards the end of the season last year. And they asked Conte, I think it was when they secured Champions League. They said, you've secured Champions League. Is your goal now to push for the Scudetto? And he said, we've achieved our goal, but now we want to be as much of a pest as possible, or something along those lines.
Yeah.
Well, and they ended up winning it. So, it's still one of those things where it's like, look, our goal is to always do our best, and our best is win every single game. So it doesn't matter what you achieve by doing that. The goal is to win every game. And I think that's a better way to do it. It's nice. It's cool. It also takes just that little bit of pressure off the boys, instead of saying, we told everyone we're going for the title this year. It's like, no, we told everyone we're going to do our best, and our best is winning. We know we're capable of winning. So
I think it's partly revisionism, because when Fonseca said that, it was actually after the final USA preseason game, and we'd won all 3. We'd beaten Real Madrid, City, and Barca. I got the order wrong there, but and everyone was kind of gasped by the idea. It's like, oh, we're liking what we're seeing so far from Fonseca ball, and now he's like, our aim's the league title. Let's go. Like, we were thinking, come on, let's have it. And
then, I was on board. I believed him.
Yeah. But then the problem was, by the end of November, we'd drawn 0-0 with Juve at home, and we were in 7th place. And he preached all this attacking and dominant football thing, and he came out after that game and was quite flippant. It's like, yeah, I still believe in the Scudetto. Why wouldn't I, kind of thing. We were like, you're just going to say it no matter what, and it sort of loses a bit of meaning there. Whereas with Allegri, you might say he's answered that diplomatically by not explicitly saying we're going for the title. But for him to say, we have an obligation to be ambitious no matter what, let's just get to the final bit of the season and see where we are. I just think that's like sensible.
It is sensible
to my ears.
And I think the other part of it, because you're right about the revisionism, 100%. I was on board with Fonseca saying that at the time. The difference now is Allegri has won Serie A more than any coach in history. Fonseca has 0 trophies to his name. He might have a few, but I don't know. He doesn't have
coach, and I'll tell you why that's important, because the guy ahead of him, Trapattoni, is on 7 and Allegri's on 6. Sorry, I don't know if you were going to say that, but
I wasn't.
I think that's another motivation for him. I'll be honest. Not only the Conte rivalry, because he's now one behind, but he can become the most successful.
That's okay. So that's good to know. I wasn't going to mention that, so appreciate it. But having that resume, you're going to back his beliefs a bit more. Whereas like if we're probably not, but if we're in 7th come November and Max said the same thing, like, I still believe we could come back, a part of me would say, yeah, he's probably right. We probably could come back, Whereas Fonseca was like, yeah, you never won anything, and now you're at this point where it's almost so out of reach, we're not going to trust it. And then when Conceição came in, 2 games in, wins a Super Cup, and he does have a crazy resume, granted all in Portugal, but a really good resume. So you thought, yeah, he could turn this around. We believe in it. But as soon as that wasn't there, everyone turned on him, and it was like it was only Portugal, blah blah blah. So there's a lot of revisionism, but I think the resume is what backs how you respond to it. You know, if Pioli came in his first season and said our goal is to win the Scudetto, everyone would be like, "Bro, what are you talking about? You've never done that," you know. But if Max were to say it, I'd be on board right away.
I feel like Fonseca and Conceição both came. And maybe this is also partly the attitude of the Italian media towards people they don't know, you know?
Yeah.
We've seen Italian coaches get favourable treatment and stuff. But it felt like Fonseca and Conceição were current accounts. They started from zero. And, you know, you gain credit and you lose it. And in the end, they racked up too much debt and they were sacked. That's how it works. Allegri is a credit card. Yeah. He's already got some in the bank, you know? And then it's like, let's see how this second adventure goes, but at least there is a history of winning that you can always refer to. So he's got a longer runway naturally. And I think that you will probably see that reflected in the media. You know, as
I don't think there's a world where he doesn't at least finish the season with us. Honestly,
God, it'd be expensive to sack him at $5 million.
Well, yeah, that too. How many? He's only on 2 years though.
2 with an option for a third. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so.
Also, he didn't put a Champions League. Well, I say he didn't put. He didn't demand and secure a Champions League bonus in his but he
did get
contract,
a Scudetto bonus.
But he got a Scudetto bonus. Yeah. So you know, you might say that's actually a but I think it shows that like he doesn't even see top 4 really as an achievement that's over the top. It's like a bare minimum. So that encourages me a little bit too, if it's true. I mean, it was a reported thing. We've not seen the documents or anything. You said something interesting about Leao. He said, I'm sure Leao will have a great season. I believe in him. I'm convinced he's coming of age. Usually players' most important years are between 26 and 30. I think he's more responsible. I met him this morning and spoke to him. I think there are all the conditions to do well. Now, we've seen a lot in the media about how Allegri's plan, Allegri's mission is to unlock Leao. And the reason that I put it in quotation marks is because he's already got a Serie A MVP season to his name and things like that. But we all know what that refers to, making him a 20-plus goal man. Can we turn him into a 35, 40 goal contribution winger every season, rather than him going sort of 2 months without a goal or a whole season without a home league goal, that kind of thing. Be decisive in most games, not one in every few. And that's going to be Allegri's mission. He likes to work on the minds of players as well as obviously the tactical coaching aspect of things. And we saw it firsthand. He definitely spoke more to Leao than any other player in that training session, at least based on what the cameras picked up. Yeah. And Leao was laughing away. They were sharing jokes, but there was also a bit of advice about movement. He shouted at him at one point to get ready to receive the ball in a training game. So I think there's going to be a bit of a good cop, bad cop thing from him. He's going to, what have we said before? Like, massage the ego a little bit, let him know how important he is, but also, I've got to get you to that next level. And I'm gonna be tough with you when I need to be. So I'm again, it's just one of the many things that I'm like, I'm excited to see how that develops.
Yeah, and that's really what it is. You know, as much as we could speculate on how we think it's gonna play out, like, we don't know. And that's the fun part about speculation, right? Is you get to guess, you get to fantasize and come up with things. But
fan
at the end of the
fiction.
day, it's fanfic. But at the end of the day, it's up to Leao to receive what Allegri is giving him and to actually perform on it. Do we think we're going to see him become more defensive under Allegri? I have a hunch that we won't. I think we'll see the opposite. I think some of the criticism of Leao we're going to see almost tenfold, because I do think he's going to be allowed to isolate himself and just kind of wait at the halfway line for us to get the ball. And then those quick bursts of energy counters. I think that's what we're going to see more is, okay, Rafa, these are your strengths. We know you're fast as hell on the breakaway. So let's put you in a position where the moment you receive the ball, you've already done 8/10 of the breakaway by being as far forward as you can without being, offside. And then he's going to have that gas of, rush of speed, blah, 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 get in there. And I don't think he's going to be required to drop back. I know that was what Fonseca wanted, and that was what Conceição wanted. And they kept saying, oh, we don't like lazy players, but he's not a lazy player. He just plays to his strengths. And yes, we could get him to drop back. We've seen him do it, and it is helpful. But I don't think Allegri is going to demand that. I think Allegri knows the type of player he has. This is a guy who's managed players like Cristiano Ronaldo. You think he said, Ronaldo, I need you to defend more. You're not playing right, or else I'm going to bench you. No, of course not. And Leao's not Ronaldo, but he has played with him quite a bit. So they do kind of have that. You also see Messi, even today. Today isn't like this year, not obviously today, but you see him kind of standing around on the pitch, walking a little bit. And then as soon as his moment's there, explosion.
Snaps into life, yeah.
And it's always been like that with these top players. Now, you're going to get guys like Christian Pulisic who will drop in and defend and help you and be engines around the whole pitch, and managers will love those type of players. But they also love that guy who gives you that quick 15-second burst of unstoppable, unbeatable speed, and that's what Rafa can give you if you allow it.
Yeah, 100%. Like he's the game breaker in the team. Said it a million times. And I think one of the misconceptions about probably the last 2-3 seasons when our defensive record has come under increased scrutiny, and rightly so, there was a lot of narrative about, well, you can't defend well if your left winger just won't go back. And it's like, that's so missing the point. Teams can win with that kind of a player, the one who does wait for the moment to get involved and things like that. I think Allegri's style.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, I think Allegri's style can not only bring the best out of him, but his priority is to fix the two lines of players behind Rafa. And that's what will create the situations where he can succeed. Like, we're not working from the presumption that Leao's going to put in even less work rate. It's that the others are going to know how to defend, so he can be free to do that. So our best player, arguably our best player, can excel.
Yeah, that's essentially it, right? Is the reason Rafa was demanded to drop back so much is because we had a guy who technically played in the defensive line, and Teo Hernandez, who wasn't defending. How many goals did we let in because he just stopped? He turned off. And I don't want to shit on him because he was a great player for us for the time he was here, but he's gone now. And if we replace him with a left back who doesn't decide he wants to overlap with Rafa, and we did see that, and it worked out great, a lot of times. But if we get a guy who's like, nah, I'm a defender, I'm going to defend, I'm going to lock down this back left side, and no one's getting through right here, Rafa doesn't have to defend. If you get the guy who's going to do it right, if you get the center mid who can also help, if it's not three dudes who want to push forward to leave in a giant hole, if it's not a double pivot with two guys that don't know how to play defense, if you do things correctly, and I think Max can, and he's seen how players operate. One thing I've always said is a good manager doesn't look at a team and say, I need to bring in 6 different players to play the way I want to. He looks at the players he has and says, this is how you play to get the most out of the players that we currently have. You improve your players. You don't play FIFA and put them all, it's not chess. You're not piecing things together. Yeah. It is chess. Sorry. It's not a puzzle. Can be, but.
Yeah. And I've stressed this before, but I think people totally undervalue the power of coaching now and what coaching should be. Head coach should do exactly that. It should be about getting the best out of the players that are already there. It has turned into a bit of a FIFA thing. It's like, how do we sign our way out of this problem? Well, I'm going to tell you, we're not going to sign someone better than Teo Hernandez for the money we've got to spend. I'm sorry, but we're not. So he's going to have to coach that individual and make the team better, make the sum of the parts better than what we've seen. Anyway, final comment from the presser that I wanted to pull out. When I received a phone call from Tare and Fellaini, I met them straight away. I was very enthusiastic, and in an hour we decided that we'd start this adventure together. Other offers, ? The most important offer for me was Milan. I am enthusiastic and happy to be there. Milan has a wonderful charm. Of course, again, he's not going to say, I didn't get any other offers. I'm just sort of here by default. But interesting that he decided to reveal that he accepted within an hour. Now, I'm taking that as he received some guarantees, because I think returns can either be a nightmare or they can be romantic, right? And he will know that. He's not fake. And at this time, we believe he was in talks with Napoli, who were the the champions, and could have coached Champions League football with all the Inzaghi stuff that was going on. Might Inter have had a look at him? That could have been a transition for them, but accepted Milan within an hour, and the idea of coming back and trying to be successful again. I don't think he would have done that unless Tare said, "This is my vision for you and for this team, and this is how we're going to do it." I think it must have been a very positive conversation for an hour.
Yeah, I agree. I do believe that he was in talks with Napoli. Everyone knows the situation around Conte. He had essentially said already that he was leaving. And I think there were talks with Allegri. There were talks with other managers as well. And when we swooped in and got Allegri, I think we saw that the chances of Conte leaving, going to Juventus were high, and the chances of Allegri going were high. So let's come in right away with a strong offer, because the fan base is the angriest they have ever been at Milan's ownership and management. We just brought in Tare. He needs to make a statement right away. We knew that Reinders was leaving essentially at this point. We thought most everyone was. So they called him up. They said, let's meet right now. Here's exactly what we can give you. And maybe he said, I want a couple more guarantees. And they just said, okay. But I think it was a fast, quick conversation to lock him up, secure that top coach with zero experience, and more importantly, keep him from going to a rival, because that was what was going to happen next. If Conte went to Juve and Allegri went to Napoli, and then we were stuck there with, consider bringing back Pioli, like that's not good,
Yeah, and also to witness all the chaos of the Calcio carousel going on, with head coaches moving here, there, and everywhere, everyone with doubts. Like, the possibility genuinely existed that the top 9 clubs could all change coach in the same summer, which is just mental and something very Serie A. But the ability to sort of cash in our chips before the end of, well, it's basically like the start of June, and be like, we've got our guy, we can watch all the chaos unfold, and we can start planning now. That made me feel very safe. And I think, it's only a little bit of shedding the light there in saying that it was a quick discussion and he was super excited to return and things like that. But I think, that's positive.
I think a lot of Conte staying at Napoli is because we locked up Allegri so fast.
It's possible. I still think that's all fascinating. As we kind of mentioned in last week's main podcast, Napoli are throwing money at it again this summer. And it's like, they can't solve the Osimhen problem. So, like, where is this money coming from? Because, unfortunately, Serie A lags behind. The revenues aren't there for them to go out and spend another 150, 200 million, but it looks like they're going to try. So what happens then? Are they kind of betting the house already on keeping Conte and building some sort of dynasty? They might. At the moment, they're probably favourites to defend, even with European football. But, Max has taken on the challenge. That's the thing as well, is you might say, well, he's got a nice, healthy salary, and maybe that convinced him. He's not even the highest paid coach in the league. Conte's on 6 mil, Allegri's on 5, Gasparini's getting 5 at Roma. So it wasn't
Allegri
like
made more at Juventus multiple years.
Yeah, it's not like we offered him 8 mil and said, "Yeah, highest paid coach, in you come and take us back to the promised land." It was still something that we could do, and it was within parameters clearly. But I also think we pushed the boat out a little bit to get him. Let's do some questions as a way to kind of tick off some talking points. Mercato pretty static. We're still waiting for. I think Club Brugge have left us on red, or they've forgotten that Jashari exists. But anyway, hi, Mats asks, with the women's Euros happening, it got me thinking, do you guys think we should approach the women's team a bit more as a fan base? Interesting question.
I wonder what he means by that. Like, is he saying support it more?
Yes. I think, I don't know. So what I'll say, first of all, is it's tough keeping up with just one team, right? And take it from somebody who covers the team as a job. So to then expand that to covering another team where there isn't as much exposure, you don't know what's going on hour by hour. There's just sort of the games and then the news, which is official, really. There's not the same buzz around women's football at the moment. Nor do I think they'll be for a long time, just because of the money involved and because of the media attention and everything like that. But I do think that Milan's women's team has been neglected a little bit in recent years. There was a big buzz after it all became professionalized, and they did quite well. They had a bit of a rise. They had some good players in there as well. But then things sort of fell apart under the previous coach. They got in Suzanne Bakker, who was quite a highly rated coach at Ajax, and the last season they got into the Scudetto playoffs, but they were never realistically going to be there. They are still some way off the top teams, which are Juventus, Inter, and Roma, like way off those teams.
And there's another storyline to follow if you are interested in the women's team. Nadia Nadim, she's a Milan player, very fantastic player, but she is up there in age now, and there's essentially an Osimhen situation with her. She's crazy falling out with the coach, might be frozen out if she can't find a new club, and that I think she's 37 now, so who knows if she can find that. Definitely something to watch. She's one of our better players, and it sounds like that journey is coming to an end, which unfortunately is something that's happened pretty consistently with the women's team. Is we will find a great player. Obviously, Nadia was a known quantity, but we'll find some unknown players that burst on the scene, and then we sell them right away. Unfortunately, the women's side is something that Milan categorizes as commercial and not sporting, even though it should be, because it is a professional team and a professional league, and these are real players. But it's headed by some good people. You just got to have some faith if you're really interested in it, and it might come good. Definitely watch it if you want. One of our reporters does a lot with the women's team. He's great to follow, Luca. Luca
Bananetti. Nadia Nadim's not coming back. Did you see the interview that she gave?
No,
it's on our site. No, it was in the past week.
Okay.
But she gave an interview to a Danish outlet, so she plays for the Danish national team. She spent last season on loan at Hammarby, by the way. So she was, she's basically on her way. She said, Milan's a big club. I'm pretty close to the board, and I like their ambitions. She got asked about a role on the board as a consultant, I guess as she comes towards retirement. She said she turned it down because she didn't want to be surrounded by idiots. So that's what one of Milan women's most iconic players ever thinks of the current setup. So where I'm at with it is...
I just said it ran by good people.
Yeah, but I think Nadia Nadim has a reputation for being pretty outspoken as well. So if she disagrees with people, she will brand them idiots and see no problem in doing so. It's quite an interesting subplot to follow. But where I'm at, to answer Max's question trying to answer it in a succinct way, yes, would love to get fully behind a women's team, promote them as much as possible. But men's first team are struggling. Milan Futura relegated. Primavera, meh. Women's team struggling, in relative recent terms. It's just it's another aspect of the club that's nothing to shout about at the moment. And as you say, I think it's more commercial than sporting. What I'd really like to see, and you'd hope this would happen with American ownership, but we haven't got there yet. Though they're showing they don't even know how to do certain things right with the main asset that they've got. But I would have liked to have seen them say, okay, we're going to put the money in to plug the gap to the top teams, and we want this team to become immediately ambitious. And I do think there is a bit of a level playing field in that sense, because it's not like your Barcelona, Man City, Arsenal, Lyon are quite big in women's football. You don't have to raise the budget a ton to get up there with Juventus, Roma, and Inter, but you've got to take the first step to be more ambitious.
What's the most expensive women's transfer?
$1 million, something like that. I think it's Kira Welsh to Barcelona.
Naomi Grima from San Diego Wave to Chelsea in January for a fee of €1 million.
Yeah, she became the first million player, didn't she?
Yeah.
Again, €1 million though, that is.
Yeah.
$1
million. Well, probably not £1 million.
Oh yeah. No, it's not. No. And the first remember who the first £1 million player was? You probably won't. Trevor Francis. Good bit of trivia for you. And that was
I was even fucking alive for that
40 years ago.
How dare you say do you remember?
No, not remember, but if you'd heard it in a pub quiz or whatever. But that's genuinely 30 something years ago. And like, here we are, we've still not had the first £1 million female player. Now, it's a bit of a chicken and egg thing with women's football in the sense that it's like, do you put the money in first for something you know you're not going to get a return on for a while? Or do you wait for it to grow organically and sort of get to the level and just accept that it's 30 years behind the men's game in terms
the
of
bigger
money?
teams are kind of incentivized or encouraged to do that, right? Because you could spend $5 million on the women's team and build a Galacticos real quick because top players are going for like 200,000, and it's
a lot of free transfers as well in women's football. That is an interesting topic. You know, it would be good to do a deep dive on that. Perhaps if there's big movement in the summer, we could touch on that a little bit more and get an expert on. Schulz, going to something a bit more lighthearted. Which Milan player is most likely to secretly fight crime, Batman style? He thinks Maignan. I think that is the answer, to be honest. But is that because he's got Magic Mike? He's already got a bit of a superhero name. So my vision is, I think Matteo Gabbia does it. By day, he's a reliable Italian centre-back. By night, he is Cage Man. And he goes around just dropping cages on people that are being dickheads.
See, I was going to go kind of more that route with like someone who's a bit unassuming. I was going to go Terracciano. He just kind of is there, you know, kind of Clark Kent style, and then takes the glasses off and it's like, holy shit, that's Superman, you know?
You wonder why he's still here, and it turns out that like he's going around fucking fixing the sinks in Milanello. He's a handyman. I mean, we've got Captain America. I suppose,
we do,
we should say that, yeah. When you think about it, there's a few like that because Leao's the surfer, Teo was the TGV train man, if you like. So yeah, we need to get some. Maybe we need to fuck the gimmicks off and just get back to being a decent team.
That's probably a good idea.
Shubes asks, have extension talks with Liberali completely broken down? Did I miss something? Well, I did a little video on this, but it wasn't a very long one on the short form stuff. Been an interesting summer at youth level because Guidi has left as the Primavera coach after a year, which is a strange one. But we worked quite hard to get him from Roma, where he'd won a couple of trophies. And then you've got, Liberali, future up in the air. Matteo Moretto saying more likely to leave than stay, could be included as a counterpart in another operation. Bakune has left. We lost another player as well. Sheka Traore might be going to Turkey, apparently. So there's been a bit of an exodus from the youth sector. With Liberali, I guess if he goes being he'll be the main headline, given that he seemed to be pretty close along with Kamada. What do we think? Should we be worried?
Yeah, I think he's gone. I've already accepted it, to be honest. I don't think he stays. I don't think he comes back. There won't be a buyback. I think he's just out the door, and I think it's stupid. But that's what happens when you treat your youth team like we did.
Yeah, I can sort of understand it because we handled him absolutely horribly last season. Obviously, he went for the preseason tour of the United States, did quite well in some of the friendlies there. Fans were kind of gassed to see him play professional minutes, but then it was he was in the Futuro and he was struggling to cope with the. Well, he didn't get tons of minutes, but when he did, I think he struggled to assert himself in games because, you know, at that level on those pitches that don't necessarily reward technical ability against physical, fully grown adults that will kick lumps out of you. A diminutive 17-year-old playmaker doesn't necessarily shine in those circumstances. Yeah. So off he went to the Primavera. So he's been relegated twice during the season and in a contract year. I say a contract year, it's actually expires in 12 months, but really we need to renew him this summer. Otherwise he's going for nothing. So I'm not surprised that his agent's like, we're shopping him around because that was horrible last season. Like, we probably should have just put him in one thing and stuck with it.
And a good agent is doing exactly that, is saying this is not a good situation for you.
Yeah. However, I think perceptions have been skewed a little bit by that preseason. And I don't think he is actually as close as what people make out. You know, there was a thing last season, sort of a movement that he should be starting games. You know, like we should just throw him in there, that kind of thing. I don't think he's that close yet, and I think the club have kind of shown that with what they've done. the ideal solution, of course, is to send him out for a loan or two, but we don't have the contract runway to be able to do that. So when faced with this crossroads, I think we're just exploring if we can get something back for him. If we could insert him in a deal, if we can perhaps get him to extend and insert a buyback. That's maybe why there's not been so much movement. But for those people who sort of have made out that we are losing a generational talent here, I just think maybe there's been a bit of PR work done to sort of inflate his position to maybe not where he's at. And with that comes pressure and things like that don't help him, So it is a bit of a sad situation, the way that's all working out. But when you're that age, you've just got to do the best thing for the immediacy of your career, because when you're 17, you're very soon 20, and then you're very soon expected to be an adult player. You turned 38 the other day.
32.
I saw you hit Stefano with that earlier. Happy birthday, Stefano, by the way. It's his birthday. Oh, yeah. He's 38. Question for the podcast from Nate Stocker. What's up with the idea of a backup goalkeeper swap? Sportiello has always impressed me when we've needed him, and it's not like he'd be leaving for a first-team position. I don't see the point for anyone. So Sky reported that we're in talks with Roma over a Sportiello-Golini swap.
It's just a thing that happens, honestly. I don't know. Maybe they get better deals, like
move a bit of
agent bonuses. It's sign-on fee. It's probably just money. Backup keepers don't get much play time. Yeah, that's it. They always move closer.
Yeah, and excuse the pun here, but it really doesn't move the goalposts much either way for us. I would perhaps be okay with it because Golini's 3 years younger than Sportiello. Also, Sportiello impaled his hand last pre-season. And you don't know. Like we've not seen enough of him to know if that's impacted him or not really. But yeah, it's a backup goalkeeper, especially in a season like this where we're not going to play anywhere near as many games. You think the marginal return on that is going to be minimal. But the reason for it, I think it was initiated by Roma because Golini didn't get along with Gasperini. So that's probably why they're looking to do a bit of a swapperoo. Sportiello, of course, has played at Atalanta and clearly got along better with Gasperini. We'll do it, but if we're solving a problem for them, cash involved, not doing any handouts here, because I'm fine with Sportiello for the time being. Find it really hard to get impassioned about the backup goalkeeper position, but here we are. Do you know what? We'll wrap up there because we're over an hour. Good and marathon. We're back later this week. Sorry, fucking frazzled. With a bonus podcast topic to be decided back early next week with another main pod episode, of course. In the meantime, keep checking the site. We're pretty much hitting a feature per day at the moment in terms of deep diving on stuff. So, if you don't keep up with the news and things like that, we're doing a lot of roundups. So go check those out. But in the meantime, I've been your host, Ollie Fisher. Find me on Twitter at Ollie Fisher. AJ, cheers for joining. Have a fantastic week, everyone.